Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Thomas.
Hi.
Hi. Maggie from Learning and Development
Hello.
from
Welcome.
OCPC
Hey.
campus. I heard you have a biometric technology over here.
Yes, we do. This is our what we call identity check mobile solution.
I see.
It's basically a biometric solution used to authenticate the card holders. Right. As we know today, card holders they use static passwords. They use SMS OTP. That's the way the banks authenticate themselves. They authenticate themselves to the bank. But as we all know, those technologies, they are old and they are not very safe. And when it comes to password, users, most of the time they cannot remember their passwords, right? So the industry is moving towards biometrics. And in our solution, we actually have two types of biometrics. Okay, so let me show you a quick demo here.
Right.
So we basically have an app. We call it the Mascot Identity Check mobile app, right? So with this app, basically it is used for the banks to authenticate the card holders, right? When they do an online shopping, for example, the banks, because it's a card not present transaction, the banks do not know actually you are who you say you are,
Okay.
right? So today they depend on passwords and SMS OTPs to verify the users, right? And since that is not safe, we are moving towards biometrics. In our solution, we have two types of biometrics, facial recognition as well as fingerprint, right? And a lot of consumers today are already very used to this kind of technology because they have an iPhone and all the iPhones today have a fingerprint sensor,
Yep.
right? And even the Android users, for example, today they may be using Samsung Pay, Android Pay, and of course Apple users have Apple Pay. So everybody is very familiar with fingerprint.
Okay.
And for facial recognition, you know, a lot of people like taking selfies. So if we ask them to take a selfie as a form of authentication, I think consumers are quite willing to accept that as well, right? As opposed to entering passwords and all this kind of stuff. So we believe that this is going to be a very seamless and frictionless experience for the consumers, right? So let me show an example. So here we are trying to, let's say, buy something on the phone, online, right? And this solution works if you're buying something on a phone or even on your tablet, on a computer, it works in the same way.
Oh, okay. So there is a desktop version as well.
It's not a desktop version, but if you use a desktop to buy,
Yeah.
the authentication will still be done on your phone.
Oh,
Right.
I see.
So let's see how it works. So let's say I'm going to buy this product.
Okay.
So typically when you're checking out, the banks will ask you to enter password or
Yes,
send you an
yes,
SMS
yes,
OTP,
correct,
right?
correct.
So here, instead of doing that, we say verify yourself by taking a selfie. So you just have to look into the screen and you blink, right? The purpose of the blinking is a proof of life, right? So that so that you can't really use a photograph of a person, right?
Or
Because
chop somebody's head off.
right, because especially photographs of someone is very easily accessible through Facebook, those kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. True, true, true.
So once the bank can verify that you are who you are, they can just approve the transaction.
I
So it's very easy. There's no password. There's no SMS OTPs to enter. Or the banks can choose to use a fingerprint as well. So in this next example, we're just going to use the fingerprint biometrics. So again, you verify yourself, and then they ask you for your fingerprint. Right. So just put your fingerprint on a phone, and you approve. Right, so we believe that this experience will be much welcomed by the consumers. In fact, we've done a lot of trials with the banks, and we did a lot of survey with the consumers. A lot of people say that once they get on this, they're not going to go back to use passwords and SMS OTP, right? Because it's so easy. And the experience is already very familiar with the consumers, right? Whether it's fingerprint or facial biometrics. And of course, in the future, we can always consider to add in other kind of modalities. So for example, today we can do iris scan. Some phones may have this feature where they can do scanning of the iris. So banks can, in the future, say, okay, instead of facial or fingerprint, I want to do iris scan. So that is possible as well, right? And of course, depending on the way the banks implement, they can say, well, you know, if let's say I have a high value item, let's say this is $4,000, they can decide, say, instead of just doing facial or fingerprint, maybe I want to do both, right? So then they can ask you to verify yourself.
So the moment you blink, it just captures your picture
The
without you having to click anything.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to click anything, you just have to blink. In fact, there's nothing for you to touch.
Right. right.
You blink to activate the authentication process. Right?
Oh, so this is like it's like a tool OTP.
Yeah,
It
something
seems
like
like,
that, right?
right?
Something like that. And in fact, I think you can imagine that not all users will have a phone that has a fingerprint
Yes,
sensor,
correct.
right? So for those mass market out there that may not have a fingerprint, then they have to depend on facial recognition, right?
I see.
But
Okay.
for anyone who has an iPhone or any phone that has fingerprint, I'm sure that they're quite used to that. They will probably just stick to a fingerprint.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, let's see what else I can say about this solution. I think we are already starting to do some pilots in the US market, and we are hoping to bring this solution into the AP market by early next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So right now it is in testing in the States.
We already did some pilots with the banks, as in the banks already launched it,
Launched.
but
Okay.
on a smaller scale basis,
see.
so that because the banks also want to learn how can they react to this solution, how should the call centers react when customers call and ask about it. So they need to build up that experience before they go for a mass launch.
Right.
So that's the whole idea. And we're hoping to do some of those pilots with banks in the AP region early next year.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear that. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the demo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much
you.
for coming. Thank you.